Hello, everybody. We have Mr. Abhishek Pareek, Group Head Finance, Waaree Group. Hello, Mr. Pareek, and welcome to Business World.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here, Miss Ovi.
Great. I know it's a weekday, and I know you must be busy, but you still took out time, and we are grateful for that. And with that, I would like to congratulate you first of all about Waaree's exemplary performance this quarter, as well as the distinction of getting 1 gigawatt of solar power, which in a month, which is a record for Indian companies.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great. So with that, let me ask you the first question. India is adding renewable capacity every year. We hear about X gigawatt in solar or wind and so on and so forth. But how much of this growth is actually creating economic value? And is the sector overbuilding relative to the returns on capital that we are investing?
I think the current scenario, if you look at Indian renewable sector trying to take a head-on with the global turmoil around the renewable energy, there are two parts of the world. One part says that renewable is the way to go, while another is trying to look more for the other source of power. But if you ask us, I think one thing to understand here, which is very critical, is what is going to be the sustainable way of development. Is it going to be based on the lowest cost of energy? Is it going to be on sustainable supply of energy? And is it going to be basis the a power which is the cheapest, which is the fastest, and which is the safest versus the other forms of power? So the answer I think for us is very clear and very evident that what we have to look at is a renewable source of energy, which certainly is the cheapest and most safest and fastest as well. So I think so there is a clear winner out of all of those, that renewable energy, be it solar, wind, together, hybrid, RTC, be it FDRE, any form which works out to be the most economic cost of energy, is going to be the winner in long-term strategy.
And what is Waaree doing about this? With respect to the addition of uh, renewable capacity in the country right now?
So what we are trying to do, we are trying to create an ecosystem of manufacturing. We started from manufacturing of panels around 18 years back. We then moved on to integrating our manufacturing with the service sector by starting the EPC arm, then O&M arm. Now we are integrating our facilities with backward integration into solar cell, followed by ingots and wafer manufacturing. So over the last couple of years, the intent has to be to scale up the level of operations so that we can be economical enough to compete with Chinese players as well. We foresee in not just India as our only market to operate out of, we equally see global opportunities for Waaree. So that's how we have been operating, and we've been trying to compete with the global players at global platform, be it the US markets, be it now Middle East market. So at Waaree scale, geographies has been way of our living. Now, more important here is to understand that integration is the key to win. When you further integrate your operation, the economics work in your favor. The cost of manufacturing keep coming down, as well as the control over the supply chain and transparency on the supply chain really help to give confidence for the customers for signing up the long-term contracts. And that's what comes out from our highest ever order book of 60,000 crore that we have demonstrated yesterday over our earnings calls.
Right. Since we're talking about manufacturing, what is the realistic long-term EBITDA margin for solar manufacturing and project development in India once the subsidies fade?
Actually, the subsidy scheme started, I think around 5-7 years back. Before that, there were not much of subsidy. In fact, for at least for the manufacturing sector, I can say that. And we were going even throughout this period when there were no subsidies. We were competing with Chinese arrowhead. We were growing organically. We grew from a 30 megawatt humble start in 2007-8 to around a 2 gigawatt company in 2019. 18-19, when then there were no such subsidy frameworks also, but we were growing naturally. Yes, of course, the subsidy was intermittently required for Indian markets to scale up to a point, Indian manufacturers to scale up to a point that they can actually compete with Chinese giants. Why? Because on the other side, the counterparts are getting heavy subsidies from the local governments. They were getting export subsidies. They was getting the lowest cost of financing solution as well, right? While scale is the another benefit that they have. So to promote uh, institutionally any sector like this, it is required that there's some basic support, which we would really want to thank the current government, who has been very cognizant of fact that this sector really needs initial support from the government, and there were great policies like LMO 1, 2, 3, PLI, Make in India, and
Hmm.
now PM Surya Ghar Yojana, PM Kusum program. A lot of programs that the government has launched, and now one thing that I can be very confident while telling you is that Waaree has reached a point we are enough competent to compete with any company worldwide on the apple to apple comparison. Now, with further integration into ingot wafer cell and
Hmm.
horizontal integration with energy storage, we will be a
Hmm.
very much fully stacked 100% integrated solution provided to our clients. And with that, we are we are opening our I would say door for the global markets.
Talking about dependency on China, we of course import a large part of our raw material for solar manufacturing and other energy sources manufacturing as well. So, how structurally dependent is the global energy transition on China today, and is it financially feasible for countries like India to fully de-risk their supply chains?
Of course, we are at a point where we need some support in terms of being able to take technology from outside of India, right? Because it will take some time for us to develop an in-house indigenous technology. But over last, especially 10 years, the trend that we have seen is with more integration into backward operation, more upstream integration, India has been able to indigenize the products to a level we have never seen before. We were almost 80-90% dependent on imported components around a decade back. Today, if you look at the number, it has drastically come down to 30 to 40 odd percent. With further backward integration planned into ingot, wafer, and eventually maybe polysilicon, I think import dependence can further come down to maybe around 10-15%. And that point in time, you can really say that we are achieving the objectives laid out in the Atmanirbhar Bharat program by the government. And I think it will take some more time, but we are certainly moving in a steadfast way with a clear conviction that India, in over the next few years, should reach a point of fully Atmanirbhar.
Lovely. One of the schemes that the government has proposed is the PLI scheme, which we know all too well. So, is this scheme creating globally competitive manufacturers or merely providing temporary protection until we see the next price war?
So I think if you have to look at the PLI component and PLI policy, the framework is attached with the performance, right?
Hmm.
You will not get the subsidy by sheer setting up the capacity. You have to demonstrate the output, production, manufacturing, and supply as well to be eligible for this policy. So first of all, the policy framework is very clear that it will only reward the players who are actually demonstrating on the ground.
Hmm.
Secondly, I think the amount of allocation of policy of the PLI policy, especially for our sector, I think it's tuned in a way that it's good for the players to set up the stage, start manufacturing, and scale up, and then compete at their own. And we are seeing that happening, by the way. If you look at players like us, who have won PLI policy, I think 2 years, 3 years back, and we are on the verge of starting our own in-house ingot wafer facilities also. I think the objective of the policies are supposedly meeting.
Another policy push from the government is in the renewable sector, not just in India, globally. And renewables are often described as low risk, but financing costs in India still remain high. Is the sector's biggest bottleneck technology or is it access to low cost capital?
I think technology perspective, we are getting one of the finest technologies in India. Obviously, we have to be dependent to some extent on the on other countries for getting the technology right now. I think it will take some more time for Indian tech companies to come out with technology which are indigenous enough. But yes, financing problem is one of those which is being resolved. But I think it need more work for us to really see that yes, we are at par in terms of our financing requirements. The biggest bottleneck that the industry see is availability of a patient capital. In India, we see that there's good amount of capital which is being placed in the renewable space. But the only trouble that we see is the patience of the capital. 5-7 years capital is not sufficient for infrastructure projects like this. It needs a capital which has longevity of at least 15-20 odd years, right? Before you look at the closure of the fund. And I think that is what all we need now. Cost wise, yes, the competitiveness is coming with the scale and size of operation and projects as well. But certainly, patience is the key for capital that we are seeking right now as Indian players.
When we talk about money or capital in this case, who is ultimately paying for the storage and grid upgrades and the other costs? Is it the energy companies? Is it the government? Or does it ultimately come down to the consumers?
I think it is somehow subsidized through government support, and to some extent, it is being passed on to the end consumers also. Because if you look at the power which is being drawn from grid, the power cost is between basis the end user 8 rupees, 9 rupees, or 10 rupees per unit. While when you draw on the power directly from the plant, if you look at the C&I PPA which are happening, even the RTC PPA wherein the supply of renewable is 24/7, the cost is in the range of 4 to 5 rupees per unit. So certainly there's a scope of improvement here. And I think with newer technologies like smart meters, with the newer technologies, which are really able to cut down the losses of transmission and distribution, with the dedicated line of T&D on the renewable space, I think the losses of the discoms are also coming down. In fact, we are really happy to see that at the console level, the discom are getting into black from red over last decade. I think there was a news I just happened to read this week that at a consolidated level, the power sector is getting profit from the infrastructure standpoint. I think that's a very positive news that certainly the technological improvements are really helping to make this entire infra for power more resilient and be prepared to do more capex in future.
Talking about infra, there's a common conception, I would say, that battery costs are falling, but storage still remains expensive. So, when does round the clock renewable power become commercially viable without the policy support for India?
I think we are seeing I think good number of PPAs today wherein the round the clock power is being available at I think half the cost of power which is being taken from the grid. As I mentioned that there are PPAs and around the clock which are in the range of 4 to 5 rupees per unit, right? And I think which is competitive enough for any C&I to go ahead and sign up if the power is available, right? And I think there's a little bit scope of further this power price coming down. Storage prices, if we look at last 2 years, the trend is very clear that with technological improvements on the chemistry side, on the LFP side, I think the cost of storage, levelized cost of storage is certainly coming down. Per megawatt storage cost for a month around a year and a half back were costing around 3 lakhs, 3.5 lakh rupees. It has come down to less than 1.5 lakhs a month today. More than 50% of price reductions has already happened in over last 2 years of time. I think so. Signal is very clear, and that is how you see more of RTC and more of FDRE projects going live than plain vanilla solar projects. It is all because of economies of scale. It is all because of technological improvements that the cost of storage is coming down, and we are already in a trajectory that it's a no-brainer for anyone to set up an energy plant with a storage backup to it.
Given the good amount of work that is being done, who's really paying the price? Are countries sacrificing financial efficiency in the name of energy security? And is that trade off really sustainable over the next decade?
I think along with the energy security, what is more important is data security also when we look at this the entire power sector. Because when you allow other technologies to get into your grid and start monitoring your data, I think it could be draconian in a war-like situation. So the inclination towards more indigenized technology, especially on those areas of the infrastructure which are sensitive to data, for example, end consumer data, data of grid giving power to the distribution centers and the other way around. I think you need technology like inverter, for example, is a very critical element which captures the data, which monitors the data. Similar is the case with smart meter, wherein the data capturing is happening. We really need to work a lot to ensure that all of these technologies are being built in India for Indian markets. Otherwise, energy security, certainly we are working and the results are already seen, but security of data could be at question if we really don't speed up the implementation of indigenized technologies for inverters, for smart meters, and similar other components like BMS, etc., wherever the data is being captured. And I think that is more important today than anything else.
Right. Of course, data security has been an issue with the government in the last half a decade or even more. But in the energy sector specifically, apart from data leakage, another common issue is that of stranded or abandoned assets. So, my question is that given rapid technology shifts and falling prices, is solar manufacturing today the part of the energy industry more at risk of becoming a stranded asset itself?
I think solar is key for scaling up our bet on the renewable infrastructure as a whole. So
Mm.
it is because that solar has worked so well in over last decade, and especially last 5 7 years, that we are today thinking of round the clock power at the lowest cost, lowest possible cost. We are able to see democratization of not just power generation, but also power consumption and distribution through a project which has got storage on site and which can infuse the power anywhere. Even the power is transportable, even without the T&D infrastructure. We never thought it can happen, but we are seeing this happening. So certainly you need someone to play a bigger role in scheme of thing for a play like this when we talk about the energy security or energy as a backbone to the country's growth. When we look at the power guzzling sectors, especially data centers and AI, we are a country of highest consumption of data,
Mm.
right? Highest number of users we have, certainly. And we also have per capita highest consumption as well of data. And considering the more domestic manufacturing coming up, I think India really need to secure the domestic energy. We need to be the lowest cost of power. We also need to work a lot on the infrastructure, which can enable sustainable, data availability over next 3 4 decades of time. When we look at a country at 20 to 2050, we really look upon India as one of the top two or at least top three countries from all standpoints.
Right. My last question for you is if you had to be really honest, what is the biggest misconception that investors currently have about the renewable energy sector in India?
I think one area that I personally see is I won't say it's misconception, but an area where I think there's a need of further deep dive to
Mm.
see is renewable growing only because that we want renewable to stay, or is it growing at its own capability of scaling up, of ensuring long-term sustainable power, and the only area which ensures that you have a cost of power being circumvented from the inflationary effect. That's the brutal truth about it. Yes, it is renewable, which ensures that you get 25, 30 years worth of power on a sustainable basis without
Mm.
even having the effect of inflation. People really need to appreciate this. I think if this fact is being considered, I think then question of of few things which may not be working very conducively for this industry could always be overlooked upon, and the long term emphasis on building larger infrastructure, reducing the cost, availability of power, and coming out of the inflationary effect ensure that India is not just the lowest cost of energy. India is not just the lowest cost of energy, but also the lowest cost of data churning, and highest consumption. And I think that that's all the larger bet that the investors, fraternity is trying to appreciate.
Great. I think you answered very candidly and in a very informative way. You also shared a lot of information which is very relevant and also what Waaree is doing right now. So that's really great. And thank you so much, Mr. Pareek, for joining us and taking the time out.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much.
have a lovely day ahead.